for those who believe the books are the problems and they should be out of the school, you are the same parents that give your kids cell phones and iPads with open access to the internet. Hey everybody, and welcome back. Today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about Danielle Smith and her great leadership. Lack of leadership. And by that I mean her blaming other people when things don't work out well for her. So we're going to talk about the book banning that the Alberta government has tried to implement and has backfired tremendously. And I'm here for that. Because who knew that was going to happen? It's not like we could have looked at another example, maybe to the south of us, and see how that went. So anyways, before we get into all the details, we're going to listen to her response on the backlash and why it went awry.
Look, I think I'm going to have to show the screen here because people aren't kind of getting what it is we're trying to do here. We are trying to take graphic pornographic images out of elementary schools so that kids are not exposed to age-inappropriate material. I don't know how much more clear we could be that what we are aiming to, this all began because these were the images that parents were showing us that were accessible to children in elementary school libraries. And so we asked school boards to use their discretion to identify books that might not be age appropriate for elementary school children. And then and Edmonton Public is clearly doing a little vicious compliance over what the direction is. And so if they need us to hold their hand through the process to identify what kind of materials are appropriate for senior high school students, what kind of materials are appropriate for junior high school students, and what kind of materials are appropriate for elementary school students, we will more than happily work with them to work through their list one by one so we can be super clear about what it is we're trying to do. We are trying to take sexually explicit content out of elementary schools that is inappropriate for me to show on the television news at night, and so it is inappropriate for 7-year-olds to see. That's what our objective is.
So, she contradicts herself, even just in that statement, where she's saying we're trying to take pornographic material out of schools and school libraries. But then she talks about just explicit content. So in the original mandates from Alberta's office, or Danielle Smith's office, where they stated a school authority is required to implement the following standards for the selection, availability, and access of school library materials. The school authority must not select for inclusion in a school library or make available to any children or students in a school library. Any children or student. Any, doesn't say specific grade or whatever, just says for any student in a school. Materials containing explicit sexual content. They're not talking about pictures. They're not saying pornographic material, illustrations containing explicit sexual content. That includes pictures, images, and also the wording, the writing of the actual book. So, of course, the Edmonton School Board started taking books off the shelf because that's very broad, containing explicit sexual content. A lot of literary classics have that. For example, some of the books that were affected in the ban were Handmaid's Tale, 1984, Brave New World, The Color Purple, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, and Jaws. I don't know why Jaws was taken off, but that'd be interesting in what their thought process on that one. Brave New World, I remember that. That's, if anybody doesn't know anything about the story, and this is years ago when I read this book back in high school, was a society that evolved into basically, so sexuality is no taboo anymore. So people are having sex with everybody. there's physically, there's like marriage is non-existent. You're having sex at a young age. So I remember in the book, they were describing how they were teaching kids to not be afraid of their sexuality, of touching each other, and that they were scorning children who didn't want to be touched or didn't like the act of showing affection. That they were saying, no, that's wrong. You need to be able to love each other. Babies come out of factory. No one has babies naturally. Everybody's taking like a birth control. So while everybody's having sex, no one's pregnant. And drugs. Oh my God. They were popping drugs like people pop Advil. You're stressed? Drug. You just want to have a great time? Drugs. And you would buy them over the counter. So to say that that book is okay, which I know Danielle Smith has, like this is, oh no, they went too far taking that book off because that's literally literary classic. But all the other ones supposedly that show pornographic material, what's the difference? I'm gonna ask you a question. What's the difference if you're reading something explicit sexual content or you're seeing a picture of it? Either I'm imagining it from the description, and books are very descriptive. A very good novelist or author, if they're able to, through their description and their writing, are able to give you that image like you're looking at it through a TV or a window, they're good at their job. And a lot of these novels are able to transport you into the story. It's almost like you're living it. So what's the difference between an actual image in the book or the way they describe it? To me, nothing. It's the same. So why are we having problems with some of the graphical images in some of these books? Which I agree, there should be an age limit. Okay? I don't disagree on that. But why are they to be taken out of all the schools? Do you understand why? It's because there's a certain group, religious group, whatever you want to call it, that just don't like the LGBTQ plus community. And the books that are giving them problems are those types of books, either by the authors, the story, or the illustration showing gay and lesbian interactions. But what happens if they took that imagery out and they were just writing it? Would that be okay with them? No, they would still have a problem. So now she's stating that the Edmonton School Board is being malicious, that they're going above and beyond what they had asked for. Again, let's go back to it. Materials containing explicit sexual content. They were doing their job. It was your job to make sure that you explained your rule or what you were looking for. And if it was hard to explain it, or if it was something that you need to sit down with them, then you should have been sitting down with them and going through the books in the list that may have had potential problems, so that you would give them a template of how to move forwards. This does not turn out well for anybody, even society. So we know this was happening in the US and still technically to this day. Let me explain something to you where it eventually goes to. So, see this book right here? Jedi Academy, Star Wars. Harmless, right? It's basically about, there's like multiple books in the series of Jedi cadets being recruited, trained, and brought into the Jedi Force. So this book right here, my son got from his uncle, okay, 2 Christmases ago. So when I saw this, he goes, "Dad, look." I go, "Oh, very nice book. Look, brand new. not being, just look. But what I noticed was the barcode, New Orleans Public Library, New Orleans Public Library, the little sticker on the side, and front page, withdrawn. Started laughing. I go, no way. This can't be. So I just went online and I did just a quick Google search, okay? I go, maybe there's a reason why it was withdrawn. Not the reason why I think it was withdrawn. So I go, what does the term withdrawn from a public library mean? So common reasons for withdrawn of a book from a public library is poor physical condition, like damage. Brand new, as you can see, okay? Outdated information, especially in nonfiction or technical books. This is a fiction. Or low circulation, meaning the book isn't checked out often. Star Wars? Really? This is not checked out often? Okay. So none of that's related to why they withdrew this book. Because when they withdrew it, there was a brand new book. They sold it. That's why he was able to buy it. He bought it on Amazon. So anyways, so I go, there's got to be something else. So I go, there must have been some sort of sexual orientation or something within this book. Went through it, didn't find anything. Even asked my wife when they read it to the kids, says, no, it's just about the kids, their life, just like being in school. So then I did a little research on the two authors. Okay. Amy Ignato. I'm pronouncing her last name incorrectly. But even Jarrett, okay, even had a little bit of controversy on one of his books that were technically banned. Another book, I can't remember what the name was, but it was too much vulgarity in his book. So he's kind of on the list. I suppose that's a little bit reaching, but whatnot. But this Amy lady, she wrote another book called The Popularity Papers. And in the context of the story, it's about two girls, okay? And two young girls. And one girl is from a single mother family with a sister, and the other girl is adopted by two gay men. Interesting. So she's labeled as an LGBTQ plus author. So therefore, any books that has her name on it was pulled from the library. Even though there's nothing under the book ban that they've been doing in the States, nothing that they determined was not correct for the students was in this story. But the author is a part of that community. So they pulled her book. And that's what's going to happen, or could potentially happen, with this book ban. As we can see, Brave New World, 1984, all these other literary classics were being pulled and people were fighting back. Guys, this is not a problem. If you can come to me with an instance of a teacher reading an inappropriate story, book, to an age of kids that are not ready to understand, I can have that conversation with you. It's not the book's problem. That's the individual teacher of that moment, of that class, of that school, but not an overall issue with the system. These are professionals. I don't care. I know there's a lot of people out there that hate teachers, that think they're no good, that they're indoctrinating our kids, and so on and so forth. I disagree 100%. But there are people out there that make poor choices. I will give you that. Now, for those parents and that group that have been pushing for these bans because they don't like the specific content of those graphic novels, that they're going to teach their kids how to be gay, which that doesn't happen. You don't teach someone how to be gay or lesbian or queer or transgender. That's who they are. For those who believe the books are the problems and they should be out of the school, you are the same parents that give your kids cell phones and iPads with open access to the internet. And you want to say it's the school and library book policies problem of why we have these problems in society today? How about you be an actual parent, be involved in your kids' lives, talk with them, find out what's going on with them and their friends and in what they've been doing, problems that they're having, concerns, and limit the access to the internet. That's worse than books like this, or what they're Danielle Smith is pointing at of, oh, I can't even show you the pictures on television. What about the pictures and videos they can see online? Pornhub. You know what security's there? Are you 18? Yes or no? Click, yes, I'm in. So what are we doing? We have to step back, calm down, and have a civilized conversation and stop pandering to these religious fanatics who are not religious at all. They don't follow the Bible, the teachings, God, Jesus, or anything like that. They're just full of hate, and they use the Bible to justify their hates. So I'm glad Danielle Smith got to push back, and we should continue to push back because this is stupids. Every time I think of a book ban, all I can picture of is movie clips of Germany in the 1930s. I know that's a bit hyperbolic, but how has a book ban ever benefited society? Show me one example. Anyways, that's it for me. Let me know in the comments what you feel in terms of what type of content should be, allowed in the schools and where you draw the line. And also, too, if there was inappropriate material in the schools, do you talk to your kids about that? Do you explain to them, this is, if you ever have questions, come to me and I'll talk to you. Or what we'll do is when you get to this age, we will talk more about it. How do you relate to your child? How do you talk to your children? How do you communicate with them on content which you feel they are not ready for it? Anyways, take care. We'll talk later.